Hey again, everyone. It's Rob Ryder, coming to you as Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, U.S. Army veteran, reporting to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armies of the United States in the field. For those of you who didn't realize it, we are under martial law. I mean, we have the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying he's going down to defend the southern border. That's domestic, so domestically we're at war. And we have been since the Civil War, and I pointed all that out in my last video, so I'm not going to go into it. But what I didn't say at the time that I wish I had, and so I'm going to do it right now, is that the President of the United States is the Supreme Court. If you didn't know that, Donald John Trump, if you took your proper oath of office, you would be the Supreme Court. See Rule 45 of the Supreme Court rules. So let's look at that right now while we're here. What does that rule say? Rule 45. Process mandates. And it says, all process of this court issues in the name of the President of the United States. All process of this court issues in the name of the President of the United States. So what court are we talking about? We're talking about the Supreme Court. Well, if we don't have the name of the President of the United States involved in it, then it's not the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said so. And these are their rules, right? It's right on. This is from supremecourt.gov, right off their website. All processes of this court issues in the name of the President of the United States. Let that marinate for just a minute there, almost President Donald John Trump. You know, you got to do a couple things yet, which have to do with your oaths. And, well, let's see. Donald John Trump, please execute the 2 oaths of office the President of the United States is required to file. You have the one in Article 2, and then the one in Article 6, because the one in Article 2 doesn't do what the one in Article 6 requires. And the one for Article 6 is found in 1 Stat, S-T-A-T, 23. The first law passed by the first Congress after the ratification of the Constitution, saying that this is the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. And basically anybody that wants to claim to have authority under the Constitution has to have taken that particular oath. We'll look at it in just a second. But there also may be some certificates, because there are like certificates of election and there's certificates of appointment. And in your case, it would be under the Great Seal as required of you, for you to be empowered under the Constitution of the United States as intended by its framers. Sir, the devil is in the details, which is the truth, right? That's where the little problems happen, and the devil's fine for you not to care about the details, but he certainly does. He's going to make sure you do them all right. Every jot and tittle, right, needs to be done, or the law hasn't been satisfied. And so we need to make sure that Donald John Trump does all the little jots and tittles required of him to be the President and the Commander-in-Chief of the United States right now, as soon as we can, because there is nobody else that has done that. And, well, then he can, force them to leave the Washington, D.C. Not just adjourn. He can round them up and have them arrested if he wants to. But it would be better if you just let them go and everybody goes back and we do a redo in accordance with the Emancipation Proclamation. But hey, if you want to contact me, quarterrecord@AOL.com, or there's my phone number. So let's look at the Emancipation Proclamation, what it said. Right? So hey, you are the Supreme Court of the United States, sir. And in the Emancipation Proclamation, it was talking about what it would take to prove that the states were not in rebellion against the United States. Right? Shall then be in rebellion against the United States, and the fact that any state or the people thereof shall on that day be in good faith represented in Congress of the United States by members chosen thereto at election wherein a majority of the qualified vote of state shall have participated, shall, in the absence of strong ContraBaling testimony, be deemed conclusive evidence that such state and the people thereof are not in rebellion against the United States. Sir, I'm going to give you the ContraBaling testimony. Nobody has taken a proper oath to office The state of Michigan has not sent anybody to Congress, and neither has any other state, because the people claiming to have taken the proper oath of office didn't. Hang on just a second. I showed my last video, sir, although it got a little long-winded, so forgive me for that. But I had shown in the congressional record for January 17, 2019, after they had adjourned for the day. This is the wrong day, by the way, to do this. It should have been the first Tuesday after the election. But they filed their oath of office for all the members, and they're saying that they're doing it to satisfy the 6th Article of the Constitution. And they said they did this oath right here and some other blah, blah. And, well, this oath has got a religious test. So this oath does not satisfy the 6th Article of the Constitution. It's an invalid oath, and it's been submitted as a counterfeit by people using assumed names because they didn't use their full legal name. For instance, Gary J. Palmer, right? That's not somebody's full legal name. The full legal name's been defined by the federal government as the first name, middle names, last name, no nickname, and no initials. That doesn't do any of those. So, 1 Stat 23, this is the first law passed by the first Congress after the ratification of the Constitution, and it said that this is the oath, that the oath of affirmation required by the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the following form, to wit, I, A.B., do solemnly swear, as the case may be, that I will support the Constitution of the United States. That's simple. Right? It says that's the oath that satisfies the 6th Article of the Constitution. That's what the framers intended. Right? If you want to satisfy the 6th Article of the Constitution, which requires you to support the Constitution, then you must take this oath. And because the oath in the 2nd Article of the Constitution doesn't support the Constitution, the president needs to take this oath also. And he needs to say, I, Donald John Trump, where the AB is. On the oath for the president in the 2nd Article, there is no place to put your name. It just says I, and then it's got the rest of the oath. So you wouldn't do it there. These are the jots and tittles. Now, in a court case called Marbury versus Madison, where it had to do with the midnight courts that were being, judges that were being appointed, you'll see that any office of the United States needs to be under the Great Seal of the state, of the United States, which is kept by the Secretary of State. If you go and look at all these judges that you're appointing now, they're all of these officers have their authority under the seal of the Department of Justice, right? Which is, that's not unless you're hiding something, well, that's not the Secretary of State. That's not where the Great Seal is. So why are all those judges under that particular seal of the Department of Justice instead of the Great Seal of the United States? Well, it's because they're not, the judges under the Constitution. We're under some kind of martial law. We have been since 1863 because there's never been a proclamation to end the Civil War. So what's going on then? Well, I showed earlier that there's this Lieber Code, right, about the instruction of the government of the armies under the United States in the field, which basically we would be under right now. And that in here it says that when martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation or order of the commander-in-chief, or by special mention, in a treaty of peace. Well, neither of those things happened after the Civil War, and neither of those things happened after the First World War. So we're involved in both. We have both domestic and foreign enemies right now. And the domestic enemies are the people who are pretending to be in Congress and to be governors and so forth, who haven't taken the proper oath of office, and right, they haven't done this particular oath, which is in 4 U.S.C. 101, Oath of Members of the Legislature and Officers. Every member of the state legislature and every executive and judicial officer of the state shall, before he proceeds to execute the duties of his office, take the oath in the following form, to wit, I, A.B., do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Hey, that sounds really, really familiar. And it should, because it's the oath right out of 1 Stat 23. It's the same oath. Well, the governors haven't taken that, and neither have any mayors or the state legislature or the alleged attorney general, secretary of state. Unless they can produce this oath that has these words with their full legal name right after the word I, and then, be properly subscribed and have the seal on it and show that it's been filed and so forth. If they don't have that, then they're not empowered under the Constitution of the United States to do anything. And that's where we stand today. Nobody has any authority under the United States because nobody has done their paperwork right. But the one that could do it the easiest and the quickest is Donald John Trump. He just needs to use his proper name. Sir, you got to use your name, Donald John Trump. And so on Friday, you have a bunch of evangelical preachers coming over. Well, now here's some stuff that most people may not know. Did you know that, let's look at this map. Here's a map of, there's the White House over here on the left. There's the Capitol. Here's Supreme Court. And if we scroll in a bit more, come on. Come on. What do we come up with? Well, look at that. That's called the United Methodist Building. All right, this building is owned by the Methodist Church, and they have a society in there that is probably a public charity that I say still has authority, because that's not the only one in there. There's a bunch of churches in there. That this is the remnant of what was created in 1917 into 1918 during the First World War, where all the churches got together under the YMCA and the YWCA for the Protestants, and the Catholics had the Catholic War Council. And they created these entities that were civilly, they were public charities, but they were given commissions by the Secretary of War. And that war's never ended, so they still have that authority. And you guys are right across the street from the Supreme Court. Well, if we scroll in just a little bit further, right behind you is the Reserve Officers Association. All right, so here's the church, and here's the state. They're only separated by a frickin' sidewalk. Right? These are Caesar's reserves right here. All these people work for Trump. Well, the officers, they do, but their oath wasn't to Trump. So let's look at that real quick. Right? This is the oath of office a military personnel would fill out if they were a commissioned officer or a warrant officer. So this doesn't apply to the enlisted. But I, right, full legal name, first name, middle name, last name, doesn't say anything about having an initial in there. And it's authenticated with their Social Security number, which is really the proper way to do it. You need to authenticate your name with your Social Security number so we can be sure that we're talking about a specific person. Because there is a chance somebody else has your name. But there isn't a chance that somebody else has your name and your Social Security number. Okay, so does Donald John Trump need to take this because he's the commander-in-chief? Is that a commissioned officer? Does he need to check the box, put Donald John Trump, put his Social Security number? In the grade of commander-in-chief, right? Because here, if you noticed, well, I'm sure you did notice, so let's go back and look at it. Let's just take the minute to do this. I should have gone for a walk or something and relieve some of my energy. I'm a bit pumped up because this stuff is really important. We got to get it right. Got to get it right today. So you see here, so help me God is the same case as the rest of the oath, right? This is the oath that's in 5 U.S.C. 3331. Well, the commissioned officers only pretended to take that oath because when we look at what they did, right, they put a semicolon and then put so help me God in a different font over next. And in the other oath, there's a comma here. Here, there's a semicolon, and a semicolon acts as a period. So they left it out of their oath, right? And then they made it this fictitious saying afterwards. But it's not part of the oath. That's the important thing. This is like when they had Trump say, "So help me God," right? It's not in his oath, but they say it like it's this added part afterwards. Hang on just a second, please. Okay, I'll wrap this up real quick because all I wanted to show is this is the oath of the commissioned officers, and this is the oath of enlistment of, where did I put it? Oath of enlistment here. I state your name, Robert Allen Rutluski, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations under Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. See, now I can say so help me God because I'm not a commissioned officer. The Constitution is talking about commissioned officers, right? And, well, that's not what a non-commissioned officer is. That's why we're non-commissioned. So me saying so help me God is okay. I'm happy to say it. And they do let people not say that, and the oath is still fine as far as the Army is concerned. But the important thing is it says that I'm taking an oath to the President of the United States. These officers didn't take an oath to the United States, to the President of the United States. You can read it yourself. Some other time. It's the DA Form 71, and you show me where it says they took an oath to the President of the United States. They didn't. So, but we did, and so it would be really good if you were to get all of the senior non-commissioned officers together with your gaggle of preachers that are coming in and, stop by the Methodist building. And after that, you could go over here, pick up the reserve officers, and just, take a little stroll down to the President's house. There you are. You're way over here. You may need some cars. And, stop over here, get the Chief Justice, bring him along with you, let him do the honors and make sure everything is done right. Give it to some Army officers. He'll give it to some, to the Army officer will turn around and give it to some senior non-commissioned officer. He'll turn around and give it to some frickin' E6 and say, here, make sure this gets done right. And guess what? It will be. That's how it's done in the Army. It's called the chain of command. So there you go, sir. I'm going to leave it there, right? You need to take 2 oaths of office, and you're going to have all the right people there. And then after all that's been done, then you go ahead and adjourn the houses and tell them, when they come back, they have to come back in good faith. Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out, because you're going to be talking to the Chief Justice. The Supreme Court has said that the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction in matters of faith. Right? It says that's up to the church. That's why you're going to get the church involved, because the paperwork that Nancy Pelosi and all these other people have filed is done in bad faith. They didn't actually take the office. They just pretended to. Well, that's bad faith. And if the church would say, the Christian church in America would say, well, that's bad faith, the Supreme Court would back them. And, we just don't need to let them back in. If they don't want to do it right, well, then we'll just stay under martial law. The Army will be in charge. You're going to give every veteran his ID card, and we'll make sure that the shit that's happening today doesn't happen anymore, which is, people being having their civil rights taken by other people usurping power under the United States that didn't take a proper oath of office. We don't need to let that happen. Right? I know we still need to have courts and everything else, but we can make sure they're done properly. So, one of the things you need to do is get people like the American Legion and so forth to go read their charter and do what the charter says, because none of these patriotic associations, which should have all sorts of power under a military government, don't have any, because they didn't do the one simple thing that was required of them, which is to file the registered agent's information with the Secretary of State. It's written right into their Constitution or into their charter. American Legion, VFW, Disabled Veterans of America. It could even be the Reserve Officers Association. I don't know if they've done it right. But if they would all do it right, then you could run the United States through your veterans who have a certificate that says they're, we were thanked for our honorable and faithful service. So, okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much. And God bless us all. We'll see you.